Now I know that you know that I don't like SUVs, but today I'm driving one. It's the MG SV EV, an all-electric family hauler. What's it like? Let's go find out. And if you like broadly impartial reviews of all kinds of cars, new and old, and other kind of car stuff, then do hit the subscribe button down below and hit the like button as well. It makes a difference. Hello, welcome to Furious Driving, and this is the 2021 MG ZS EV, part of MG's expanding range of pure electric vehicles. This is actually one of the most affordable family-sized electric cars on the market at the moment. So let's take a look around and see what you get for your money. The ZS only comes in two trim levels, the Excite and the Exclusive, and those come in at respectively £28,000 and £31,000, but there's a £2,500 rebate on electric vehicles at the moment, so it makes it surprisingly affordable, certainly cheaper than most of its rivals like Kia, Mazda and Peugeot. But do you get less quality for the money? Certainly they've done a lot to try and make the thing look interesting and vaguely exciting. It's built on an MG SUV only platform, which is relatively new, and the ZS has been around since 2017, but the electric car is obviously a little newer. And of course, being an SUV shape, there's only so much they can do with the blobby square nature of the vehicle, but the designers have done what they can. At the front we've got this MG grille with the little chromy spots on the front, a bit like a 1950s or 60s American car. Quite nice to look at. Around the sides we've got lots of creases and shapes. We've got the plastic trim around the arches and the bottom, even little bits of faux aluminium metal plastic going down here to add details. And on the touch entry locking door handles, we've even got a shiny bit of metal on the top. Now around the front of the car we've got a CCS Type 2 plug hidden behind the grille. The battery in this car is something we need to talk about straight away, because that is the crux of all electric vehicles. It's a 44.5 kilowatt hour battery, which means that it will give you around 163 miles of range in standard mode, maybe up to 170, 180 in eco mode, downhill with the tailwind. In day-to-day use, fast charging this thing to 80% from flat will take about 40 minutes, from flat to 100% on a wall charger at home, about 6.5 hours. Now this is very definitely a family car. This is the kind of car you'll buy if you're not planning on going too far too often, but you want to do a week's shopping, take the kids to school, run errands around town. And so a decent sized boot is essential, and this is where SUVs actually tend to fall down pretty badly in comparison to good sized hatchbacks and certainly any estate car, because the wheel wells always encroach too far into the boot. The boot is never long enough, it's just very deep and not very wide. Generally they're like a weird tall thin shape, like a picnic cool box effectively. This is actually a bit more square in here, so you can put larger suitcases in. It is still a slightly awkward shape because the lip of the boot is just so high. If you were doing an airport run in this thing, you would have to hoik your cases over this lip. So this is the boot with the floor up position, which is fairly limiting in terms of space, but makes sliding things in a bit easier. Boot down, 470 litres of boot space with it in this position, but it's a long way down. If you've got something heavy in there, it's going to be hard to haul it out again. You have got netted pockets left and right, a little light up there, and looking under the floor we've got no spare wheel, but we do have a fast charging cable, space for your wall charging home socket cable, which is currently plugged in at my house, and a wheel repair kit and a warning triangle. And there's one slightly weird fault I've found with this car, which maybe other reviewers haven't noticed. This boot only just opens high enough. I park on a slope on my drive at home, and I found I was able to walk into it more than once when I was loading the car up, which is a little bit irritating. If you're shorter than me, it's not going to be a problem. But so yeah, this car is designed for people under 5'11". Now here we are in the interior. You'll notice the exterior view is perhaps a little different to where we were a second ago, because I'm doing this whilst I'm charging it. This is where you'll be spending a lot of time, unfortunately, unless you're doing mostly local journeys that can be done on a single charge. Now let's start off with the instrument cluster, the dials. First of all, we've got actual analog needles. This is quite cool. I'm actually rather refreshing to see in a world of modern digital dashboards. Actually real needles look quite nice. Now on the left hand side we've got the speedometer whisking up to 130 miles an hour, and below that we've got a battery volt level. On the right hand side we've got what looks like a rev counter. This is actually an efficiency or charge dial. So below the zero, on the bottom left, we've got our charge thing. So lift off, go downhill, brake. This will dip into this area here, and this shows you're getting power back into the battery. Above that, going the further round the numbers you go, the more power you're drawing from the battery, and the faster you're depleting your charge. Up until above 90, you're in boost mode. Below that, we've got a battery fuel gauge, effectively, percentages in little white dashes. And in the center, we've got our multifunction LCD screen telling us many things. Currently our speed, and the left hand side will tell us what the speed limit is as well. It gives us our range on the bottom left, what gear we're in, what mode we're in, and how many miles the car has done. We've also got other things including our current journey statistics, telling me how long we've been on the road, average speed, so forth, accumulated total of the same, more information about the voltage and that kind of stuff, tyre pressures even, electrical flow when we're driving, whether it's using it or refueling the battery, and then back to the beginning again. Now moving back to the steering wheel. This whole thing is very much MG's standard design language, so it's very familiar if you've driven any of the other MGs in the range. We've got the nice leather steering wheel, kind of sporty looking and sporty feeling thing. This is actually quite a good high point of the car, if you like. It's multifunction, of course. We've got the big MG chrome octagon in the center, which looks good, and the horn, very standard sounding horn for this kind of car. Left hand side we've got our multifunction buttons for source and radio and phone, that kind of thing. On the right hand side, all the controls for the stuff on the screen in front. Ducking in front of the steering wheel, we've got two stalks, left hand one, indicators and lights, right hand side wipers, all the usual standard stuff. There is a third one completely concealed by the steering wheel. This is our cruise control. You need to learn this by touch, because when you're going straight on, which is likely when you're going to be using cruise control, you do not have any visual eyes on it, so you have to know what you're doing with that. I believe this car does have adaptive cruise as well, so it will track other traffic as you're going along. Up above that we have got a pretty impressive T-shelf. This is looking like leather, but actually it's not. It's kind of a moulded rubbery stuff with even moulded rubbery stitches. It's a very effective T-shelf. You can have a full height Furious Driving cup on top of that. Check them out on the Furious Driving Redbubble store. These are very good at keeping a coffee warm for a long time. Of course, technically being an MG, it should be a trip to the pub and a pint of speckled hen shelf, but obviously you can't drink and drive, so a nice cup of coffee instead will do us proud. This is a very good, effective picnic shelf, should you wish it. We also have our tweeters up in the A-posts. Now let's start over here on this side. We've got these rather interesting air vents over on the left and the right corners of the dash. Little piano black surrounds, some plastic silvery stuff, looks like aluminium, it's only plastic of course, and there's interesting air vents like the back end of a jet engine or a racing car's wheel or some kind of turbine. Very exciting little bit of design there. Below that, less excitingly, mirror adjustment and headlamp adjustment, so nothing really to write home about down there. Then the doors, lots of heavy duty plastic elephant hide stuff there, broken up with a bit of visual excitement from this silvery plastic and metal door handle. I think it's actually a metal door handle, which has got the locks, central locking buttons. Not on the passenger side though, only on the driver's side, you will notice. More elephant hide below that. Then we've got our armrest and the little pad here, which is kind of padded. I think it's pretend leather vinyl-y stuff, bit of white stitching to break up the darkness in here. Big solid door pull and 4 window switches. You'll notice though when you're using it, you've got one touch window up down on the driver's side, but not on the passenger side. So a little bit of cost cutting to keep the price down just there. Below that, huge speaker and huge pocket as well. Great big slot for bottles, cans, drinks, bottles, that kind of thing, and lots more space behind it as well. Then ducking back over to the left hand side of the screen, we have got our big, let's wake it up, our big infotainment screen. Hello MG. And this does sit below more of the plastic silver stuff. Another vent over there, big vents in the centre. Wakey, eggs and bakey, come along. Now on the infotainment screen, we've got 3 main things on the home button. First of all, we've got our audio source, which is radio or CarPlay or whatever else you're playing through, your navigation and the choice of Android Auto and CarPlay, depending what you've got plugged in. Tap the source button and that will cycle through DAB, FM and all the rest of it. It's a little bit slow reacting, I've found. This could be quicker. So you've got all your different audio sources, all your stations. This isn't the best infotainment screen I've seen, but it is a very nice, bright, clear monitor. That is in its favour, but it's a little bit slow, especially in the navigation when you're entering the your destination. That can be a bit slow. Now below that we've got a couple of basic controls. The home button to get you back onto the home screen is quite well hidden. It took me a while to realise that was just there. It's not labelled in any way, shape or form. They've done a lot of putting things onto the screen, but they haven't gone too far because your controls for the heater and ventilation are down here on actual physical buttons, which is quite nice. Heating on the left, power on the right. It is only single zone rather than dual zone, which is, you know, fair enough at this price point, I suppose. If it was a petrol car though at this price, you would have dual zone, I'm absolutely sure. One thing though, there's no readout here. If you turn any of the dials up and down, you'll notice it takes away your screen, gives you your HVAC up here. Even your directions for your HVAC direction are on there. It's a little bit confusing, and don't do that when you need navigation on, otherwise you'll forget where you're going. Now, behind that, we've got a nice big pad for your phone to live in. It's got a little hole cut through there because underneath that pad, there's a sub pad. And here you've got a couple of USBs down there, so you can plug your phone into charge and also connect up to the CarPlay. The downside with this is it's not quite wide enough to comfortably put your phone in when the wire's connected to it. I wonder if you're supposed to run that, leave it underneath there or something. It's not most convenient though. And behind that, we've got in front of that, depending how you want to put it, in the surround of piano black plastic, we've got this 3 metal aluminium-y looking, or titanium almost looking, controls. The left-hand one is for mode, economy, normal and sport. You do notice a big difference in performance from the car. Stick it in sport mode, it reacts way more excitingly, I suppose you would put it. Drop it into economy and the car, I think it's a little bit dulled on the accelerator response, and also you notice your range jumps 10 to 20 miles on the estimated remaining distance you can drive. Curves like in Formula 1, lift off the accelerator and you have one pedal driving, so it kind of effectively brakes for you and recharges a lot as you lift off. Or you can dial it down so you have virtually no 1 foot driving and far less regenerative braking. Your call. I like it to be on quite a lot because then it does give you a bit more range. Battery just flicks up the information about how much battery you got up on the screen in big writing in a hurry. Then we've got this rather interesting gear selector thing, or drive selector, a bit like a Jag XF really, I suppose. Park in the centre, hit the button for park, or twiddle it around, push and twiddle for reverse neutral drive. And it's all surrounded by this rather nice graphite black strafed stuff, which is quite fun. And behind this grooved, it's textured in an interesting way, bamboo-like graphite-y black stuff, which looks quite classy actually. We've got 2 cup holders, very deep indeed. You can lose a big cup in there, no aggro whatsoever. There's room for 2 of them. If you don't want to use that, you have got a roll top bureau cover, which lends it the touch of class with a little bit of chrome, and then more of this pretendish leather. I'm assuming it's not because of environmental and vegetarian type vegan reasons. Many cars don't use actual leather anymore. This feels like it's a good imitation, I'm going to say, with nice white contrast stitching, even black stitching as well, so a bit of detail going on there. This does match the seats, which are extremely comfortable. These are probably the car's ace in the hole. This is the big selling point from this car, is how comfortable these chairs are. The one thing you notice is that the driver's one is electrified. You can buzz it all over the place, backwards, forwards on the buttons. The passenger one is manually adjustable. I would just say, I'm in a half-empty car park and a bloke has just parked so close to me he had to struggle to get out of his door. Why did you park next to me in a half-empty car park and then make it so close and you ding the car? What a fool. Right, and back behind the bureau top, we've got a big armrest which covers an even bigger cubby hole. You're wrist deep into this thing. It's loads of room for wallets, glasses, face masks, available on the Redbubble store, I will mention, and what other detritus you want to lug around. Above you have got a full-length glass roof. Power on. Full-length glass roof with an electric cover. This does pop up and give you a bit of fresh air if you want it, but I'm next to a motorway, so I'm not going to want that right at this very minute. So yeah, so lots of headroom, fair bit of knee room, decent room on the elbows. It's all fairly generous here in the front of the car. Let's have a quick look in the back. Now my access is slightly limited by the bloke who just parked very badly, diagonally, so close I can barely get in, but climbing into the back seat is otherwise fairly trouble-free. I think this is the selling point that people push with SUVs, is how easy it is to climb in, because it's basically bum height. You just kind of slide on in. Anyway, right, so the seats are also extremely comfortable here in the back, nicely padded. The texture of this leatherette material is rather nice as well, and you kind of sink into it. It's generally about right. You could use a little bit more under knee support in the rear squab. It's very flat on the bench. If it's a little higher up, it might be a tad more comfortable, but I've got lots of foot room, lots of knee room, a ton a ton of headroom, so all looking good so far. In terms of amenities, there are map holder pocket things on the backs of both chairs, a USB back here, a little nubbin holder in the centre. Both doors have got speakers, big pockets of drink bottles and so forth, electric window, you know, all the usual stuff, the general door activity materials, and there's lots of room back here. It's a big, comfortable, airy room. One thing I will say is perhaps a bit of a downfall is this kick up in the door. On the outside there's a bit of styling that follows up into that little porthole window, which is quite cool and fun. However, if you are a child, your head is going to be kind of no higher than the back of this headrest, or top and bottom of this headrest I should say, and so you're going to be looking out there and potentially getting fairly car sick. And bear in mind, they are selling this as a family car, so I can really see this as a shortcoming which potentially could be an issue. A similar deal going on with the XC40. People always push SUVs as the ultimate family car, and I always say no, the estate car or hatchback is the ultimate family car. They're far more useful, and I think this does kind of push my point home, or make my point for me if you like. So setting off in the ZS is very easy. Foot on the brake, hit the power button, the needle do their sweep, and suddenly we are on, silently, like in most electric vehicles. Now getting going, it's not a slidey auto shifter like we often see, or a column shifter. It's a rotatey dial, so push down and rotate, back to reverse. On comes the reversing camera, which is standard on the Excellence but not standard on the Excite. And away we go. Checking our surroundings, of course, or paying attention to our surroundings. Rotate to drive and off we pop. So driving is a very easy two pedal control like an automatic car, so basically easy driving, simple driving. Before we get too far down the road, I will mention the bugbears of general SUV-ness that I don't like about this car, which is as much about its form factor of being an SUV as anything else. It's got these great big A-posts which are really hard to see out of. The big bulbous bonnet, which is for pedestrian safety as well as the shape of the vehicle, means that you can't really see the front of the car too well. The extremities vanish off over there somewhere. You can't see the pavement, you can't see the curbs, so parking it is a little trickier than it needs to be. This is generally an SUV thing as much as this car thing, so let's get that out of the way to begin with. And looking behind us, the rear screen visibility is actually also quite small as well, but we do have the reversing camera for backing up, and the mirrors are enormous, so we do have that kind of rearward assistance. Now the ride is tuned very much for comfort of the occupants, which does mean that if you hit a big corner, you do list like a ship taking on water. So although we will breeze over this level crossing and likewise breeze over speed humps and that kind of thing, if you get onto a back road, which you probably won't be doing too much in this car perhaps, it's not the most enjoyable ride. Now, it may well be 4x4 shape, but like many modern SUVs, it is front wheel drive only, and there's no four-wheel drive option on this car. Whenever you start the car, it defaults back to the normal mode, so if you want to save your range, you need to drop it back to E mode every single time. Your KERS settings do let you drive virtually one pedal, not quite as violently is the wrong word, as vigorously as a Nissan Leaf for example, but you can just lift off the accelerator and it will bring the car to a halt. You learn to kind of modulate your lift off the pedal in order to slow the car down gently. So let's get to 40 miles an hour, lift off the brakes, and this is now slowing us purely on the battery regen and giving us more boost for it. Let's put this back into normal for a second. Now the steering, like the ride, is designed for comfort. It's extremely light, but it does mean you have almost no feel for the wheel whatsoever. So cornering fast can be done, but it's not something you're going to get a great deal of satisfaction and joy from. Now with the equivalent of 143 PS or horsepower, you do have pretty decent progress. 0 to 60 is about 8.5 seconds, and the top speed though is only 87 miles an hour, which doesn't sound a lot, but let's be honest, that is more than the actual speed limit, so it shouldn't really be something to worry about. In terms of usage, now the range is always a big deal with these electric cars. This has got better than some smaller cars, Zoe, Honda, those kind of things, but not as much as some of the bigger, longer range cars, which cost obviously a bit more. If you are one of the people who is apparently the vast majority of us who don't drive more than 20 to 30 miles in a day, this will be absolutely ideal for you, because the range of 163 in normal mode is pretty acceptable, I guess. And if you are driving it in town, in traffic, you will find that the range virtually doesn't move, because every time you lift off the accelerator, the regen braking kicks in and gives you a few more volts, and you can carry on. I sat in traffic for half an hour yesterday. At the end, I'd actually got exactly the same estimated range and power in the battery as when I started, believe it or not. I think only the air conditioning was causing me power loss. Conversely though, if you are someone who uses the motorway a lot, this will not be quite such a good car for you. Because get up to 70 miles an hour and you will see the range hemorrhaging in front of your very eyes, like driving a 7-litre V8. You'll see your miles just evaporating on the screen. This is because you've got your foot on the accelerator all the time. It's the wrong shape of car for speed with electrics. If you need to be going fast and far in an electric car, it needs to look like a Tesla. It needs to be low and aerodynamic, not big and shed shaped like an SUV. If you're an urban driver doing shorter runs on more A road, B road kind of situations, this would be absolutely ideal for you. And the electric equivalent to miles per gallon, which is miles per kilowatt, this gets 3.3 miles per kilowatt. Although I did see on the screen around 3.6, 3.7 as an average driving it around this week. Now, moving from a country lane or a back road or a town road to a dual carriageway or motorway, that smooth ride, that soft smooth ride is actually quite pleasant in this situation. That 0 to 60 of 8.5 belies the fact that there is a lot of mid-range punch, so if you do need to get out and accelerate quickly to overtake something, you can do it quite easily. Of course, heading into a 50 zone down here, we will back off because there's often a speed camera down here. Judging by those brakes, I suspect there might be. This is fine for a fairly short journey, but for a longer drive, this isn't really its natural habitat because the battery will eat up fairly quickly. I believe there is a longer range battery version on the way in the near future, so maybe if you're looking at one of these cars, that might be the one to look at in a couple of months' time. But if you're not worried about long distances, then the range on this car would be fine for you. The controls are all easily and logically laid out. They've not gone crazy with too much on the screen. There's enough of the stuff on physical controls as well to make it quite comfortably usable, and it looks quite nice as well, even if the materials don't always feel as premium as rival brands. But then you're getting an absolute bargain of a car in this situation, because despite the fact you've only got the electric driver's seat and manual passenger, no one-touch window on the passenger side, that kind of thing, you are still getting a bit of a bargain considering the technology. Perhaps part of the reason this is so affordable is that MG have just built a 300,000 units per year factory for building batteries out in China, so supply should easily match demand. Now, after driving this car for around 5 hours pretty much solidly yesterday, a couple of things did spring to mind. The seats are incredibly comfortable. They are very supportive, they're a nice amount of lumbar, and they're just the right amount of soft as well, so you can just relax into them. This is another, I guess, an SUV-ish kind of thing. I do notice this in other SUV-shaped cars also, is that the glass house is very small compared to the overall height of the body. So the waistline sits very high indeed, which means you can't really see out of the car that easily to see what's beside you. And also, if you're the kind of person who likes to sit with their elbow up on the window frame for any length of time, that gets very uncomfortable very fast, because the door armrest is actually quite low and a bit far away from the steering wheel. Because the other option is the armrest down on the door, which is a little low and far away from the wheel to be using that comfortably. The level of road noise is decent as well. You can hear the tyres rumbling and you can hear a little bit of whine from the motor at lower speeds, but on the whole, it's very quiet indeed. Certainly a lot quieter than its petrol or diesel equivalent. So you can corner with a certain amount of speed, although it will grip well through a corner. After all, it is an MG at heart, but it does feel not comfortable doing it, and there's, as I say, no feedback from the steering whatsoever, so it's not something you'll be doing for the joy of it. The running costs are very good indeed. Because it's of the electric persuasion, you only have to plug it in, which doesn't cost a lot. Road tax VED is 0 at present. If you're a company car driver, I believe it's 0 this year, going up to £5 a month next year, and then £10 the year after. So if you're looking for some economical motoring as well as green motoring, then this could be a good thing for you. The technology has proved to be good. CarPlay from Apple, that works seamlessly. Android Auto, I haven't been able to test with that on Android phone. Navigation is very accurate. It's a little bit clunky getting going, and you do have to tell it to start the navigation again if you stop during your journey. That aside, it finds even quite obscure locations. Radio, DAB and FM all have good reception, although there is a certain amount of lag between pushing the screen and stuff happening sometimes. So SUVs are incredibly popular. People just can't seem to stop themselves from buying them. I'm not quite sure why, because I don't think they're the best body style out there. I think estate cars are better for practicality, hatchbacks are better for handling. If you're not too bothered about the handling aspect because you're just trundling around town and just want light steering and a soft ride, this kind of thing is absolutely fine, I would imagine. But in terms of aerodynamics, you may think a lower, sleeker car, a hatchback-shaped car, MG do them themselves, might be more appropriate for cutting through the air and not using so much electrical charge. The fit and finish of the interior is very good indeed. There are no squeaks and rattles, obviously. Everything fits well and looks good. The things you actually touch are quite nicely tactile. Nice sort of leather steering wheel, nice leather effect bits where you put your elbows and arms. The bits you don't really touch too often do feel a bit plasticky and a bit rubbery, but then that's the same deal with anything else at this kind of price as well, so it's not to be held against it. Well, thanks for joining me in this, well, out of my comfort zone SUV vehicle. If I was looking for a family car, it would be an efficient, cheap, cost-effective choice, which is comfortable and it's got loaded with as much kit as you would certainly expect at this price point. If it was my money, I would probably go for the MG5 Estate or a hatchback, which I would find more appropriate to an EV because the lower centre of gravity would mean better handling, but that's just me. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this, then please do hit like and subscribe as always, and hit the bell notification down there, and join me again next time driving something completely different.